Hi, I'm Professor Daniel Kameo. I'm a lecturer at Satya Christian University in a town called Salatiga, Central Java, Indonesia. I'm here at Eastern University as a visiting scholar for 3 months. I would like to share with you today some development issues in Indonesia, and I would like to talk about 3 particular things. One, about what economic development potential we have in Indonesia. The second one would be about what are the problems we faced in economic development in Indonesia, and what would be alternative policies that can be introduced or applied to develop Indonesian economy. Let me start first with introducing a little bit about Indonesia. As you can see in this map, Indonesia is a huge country, consists of more than 17,000 islands and about 3,500 islands inhabited. 1/3 land and about 2/3 of the country is water. I would like to go through some main macroeconomic figures. This is mainly from Central Bureau of Statistics of Indonesia. At present, population is a little bit over 230 million people. GDP per capita at current market price is almost $2,700. In PPP terms, it's about $4,766. The 3 major contributors to our GDP, our economy, are manufacturing industry, trade, hotel and restaurants, and agricultural. These are the 3 main contributors to our GDP. Labor force in 2010, a little bit over 100 million, about 110 million. But note there that almost 45% of our labor force involved in agricultural sector. So agricultural is still the main sector in the economy, although from the GDP contribution, it's only contribute 14%. So that means its productivity in agricultural sector is still very low. Poverty, the latest figures from the government say that about 13% of the total population of Indonesia still live under poverty line. But if we use the World Bank figures, they said that if they use $1 PPP limits, people live under poverty, or those that considered as absolute poverty, about 20%. And if they use $2 limit, it will be about another 40%. So the poor people in the country, according to the World Bank, would amount almost to 60%. And if we try to identify who the poor people are, most of them are small farmers, fishermen, petty traders, and about 50% of them, of the workforce in manufacturing industries, also considered poor. I'll show you some statistics later why they are considered poor. The following, I'll show you briefly some statistics about what the country have in terms of resources, especially economic resources for development. Indonesia is first the most one of the largest producer of rice in the world, third only to India, after India and China, although it's also the third largest consumer of rice in the world. As I said, note that rice is the most controversial commodity economically and politically. Economically, because 90% of 230 million people eat rice, so it's very important for the government to watch the price of rice. But 90% of rice also produced by small farmers. So you always have a contradiction whether you want to keep the price of rice low for the benefit of the consumers, or you want to raise the price high for the benefit of the small farmers. So that's why it's sometimes it's very controversial, and why it's also politically very controversial. But since majority of farmers are considered small farmers, own less than half a hectare of land, about 20% of those small farmers are considered poor. Indonesia, also known as or right now, is the largest producer of palm oil in the world since 2008. But also note there that aside from this economic potential of this commodity, it also has a lot of problems environment problems, because you have to clear out a lot of land, sometimes forest, for the plantation of palm oil. Also note that 65% of the plantation owned by a very small numbers of big corporations. But the tragic thing is that although palm oil has many potential for downstream industries, but 75% of our palm oil is exported. So no downstream industries for palm oil in Indonesia. Natural rubber production, it's second only to Thailand. From the production point of view, from the plantation area point of view, Indonesia has bigger plantation area, but because the productivity of our rubber is still very low, then it is second to Thailand. Coffee is the fourth largest producer in the world after Brazil, Colombia, and Vietnam. And the Ministry of Agriculture planned that in 2025 they would like to see Indonesia as the major coffee producer in the world. Cocoa is second largest after Ivory Coast, but again, like palm oil, most of the cocoa nuts are exported. Fisheries, Indonesia has more miles of coastline, almost 60,000 miles, more than any other country in the world. And as I said before, 2/3 of its land consists of water. So you can see that fishery also one of the biggest economic potential for the country. We also have or rich in mineral resources, gas, largest natural gas producers in the world, coal exporter, the largest exporter of coal in the world, second largest producer of copper in the world, just after Chile, second largest producer of tin in the world, fourth largest producer of nickel, again in the world, second largest producer of bauxite in the world, eighth largest producer of precious metals in the world. So not only in agricultural sectors, but also other natural resources like mineral resources. Tourism is another very important economic sector in the country. At present, it contributes a little bit more than 4% to the gross domestic product, and tourism is the third largest contributor for foreign exchange revenue for the country. Some of our economic development issues, or one of the main economic development issues, is inequality. So despite of all those richness of economic potentials that the country has, there are quite a problem in the distribution and allocation of this wealth in this country. Well, I will show you some of these statistics. First, just look at the distribution of gross domestic product among the people in the country. In 2009, we have income distribution according to the Central Bureau of Statistics. The lower 40% of income group received about 21% of the GDP. The next 40% received about 37.5%, and the richest, the highest income group, received more than 41% of the total GDP. So if you look at this, if we talk about per capita income, then in 2009, per capita income in rupiah is 196,000 rupiah per person per year. That's in rupiah, or approximately in dollars term, it's about 2,659, or in purchasing power term, it's about $4,524. That's the average. But look at this, if we look at the distribution by income group, you'll see that the 40% lower average they receive is about $1,410. The second 40% receive $2,495. Both of this group, total of 80% of the population, received on average lower than the national average, 2,659. So when I said average per capita income of Indonesia is 2,659, I have to also say that, remember, 80% of them receive lower than the average. This is just one example of how the income is distributed unequally in the country. In Gini coefficient term, the Gini coefficient for Indonesia is 0.37, which is considered slightly high inequality. This is another way of looking at the distribution of income measured by daily per capita expenditure. You'll see that as the statistic from the World Bank says that almost 60% of them are in the bottom line here, considered poor, with expenditure of less than $2 per capita per day. But you can see the top higher income group is only 0.17%. So probably it's better in the US, 1%. This is only 0.1% in the highest income group. So this is just to show that the income inequality is very high in Indonesia. If in the US, the comparison between the wage for average labor work and the salary of the CEO, it's about 300 times difference. In Indonesia would be almost the same, 100 to 300, or probably more than 300 times different between the CEO and the average wage for the labor force. Another way to look at the inequality, or probably the cause of inequality in the country, is to see how the wealth or the asset of the country is allocated. This is just some of the statistics that will give us some indication about the inequality in wealth distribution. For example, only 304 license holders that controlled more than almost 26 million hectares of forest, controlled only by 300 companies. And remember, we have millions of farmers that also live around or in the forest themselves. Only 200 companies controlled or owned about 10 million hectares of plantation land in the country. Only 6.7% of total agricultural land allocated for small farmers. If I compare with South Korea, they allocated about 80% for the small farmers, or for Japan, it's 100%. So if you allocate less than 10% for the agricultural land for farmers, then that is certainly very inequality in asset or land distribution. 51% of small farmers, of course, then own very small lot of land, less than half a hectares. Some of them even don't have any land, landless. There is a regulation from the Minister of Agriculture and Forestry that palm oil companies can own and operate up to 100,000 hectares for palm oil plantation. As I mentioned before, minimum wage is very low. In Indonesia, minimum wage never up to or equal to the minimum basic needs. At present, it's only, the highest is only up to 98 or 95% from the minimum basic needs. Another fact that I would like to show you here, why income inequality is still a major economic development problem in Indonesia, is to see how multinational corporations also play an important role in running the economy of the country. For example, here, the top 5 multinational corporations controlling production and distribution of all agricultural inputs. In Indonesia, where almost 50% of the people work in agricultural sectors, but the agricultural inputs, majority of agricultural inputs are controlled by multinational corporation, Syngenta, Monsanto, Bayer Crop, BASF, AG, Dow, Argo, all these giant corporations control and monopolize production and distribution of agricultural inputs. Not only in inputs, but also in the production of or manufacturing industries that use agricultural output. These giants MNC also come to Indonesia, like Nestle, Cargill, ADM, Unilever, Kraft Food, all play a very important role in manufacturing using agricultural output. This all means that small and medium-sized industries will have very hard time competing with these big companies. In retailer, these big giant retailers in the world also play a very important role in running the Indonesian economy. Walmart, Carrefour, Metro Group, Tesco, 7-Eleven, they are all there pushing out the small traders in the country, especially in big cities and even in small towns also. These big giant retailers are establishing their businesses there. I would also like to show you some statistics here, how the multinational corporations not only coming in with what they already control, but they also will try to buy out local industries, local companies, so that they will have a full monopoly of a particular product. Just for example, to show you some examples, this brand here are locally owned. It used to be is originally all from Indonesia. Indonesian entrepreneurs established these companies. ABC produce soy sauce, Sariwangi tea, Bango soy sauce. This is all started small, but then they become quite big businesses in the country. But when they started to compete with the same product from these big companies here, then these big companies will try everything to buy out these local companies. So this all local product now owned by these big companies: Heinz, Unilever, Danone, Coca-Cola, Philip Morris, and as you see here, the share that they own now is ranging from 65% to 100%. One other development issue in Indonesia is the dependency on imports. And there's nothing wrong with dependency on imports. The only thing wrong here is that these are very basic consumer goods, and these are very basic agricultural output. The problem here is, as you can see, this is all agricultural product which can be easily produced in this tropical country with lush uh, fertile land, but we still have to import them. Soybeans, 70% all from US, wheat 100%, corn ranging from 14 to 20% per year from the total need of the country. Sugarcane, we still import almost 40%. Beef, around 30 to 40%. Milk, around average 70%. Vegetables and fruit, especially for supermarkets. If you go to big supermarkets, all their vegetables and fruits are imported. So there's no, almost no local farmers that they work with to supply for their market. Peanuts, we still import about 40%. Ironically, fish, as I said before, 2/3 of the country consists of water, and fishery is one of our rich natural resources, and yet we still import some fish. Agricultural product, this is very important. Almost all seeds for all main agricultural product for horticulture, rice, corn, vegetables, everything, we still import them, especially from US, Thailand. Seeds for fruits, hence 70% of them from the USA total. Animal feeds, there's nothing wrong with this, but if you see, these are all very important for the economy of the country. So the dependency of this, meaning that the economy of the country is very weak. It's very depending on important input for our very important product. So for me, all of those pictures that I've just shown to you, all come down to a basic problem that I would say it's all rooted in the inadequate macroeconomic policy from our government. And because of that, we have unequal distribution of income and assets. We let the domination of large corporations in the economy. We let the economy depending too much on import for strategic, both consumer and input goods, and underdeveloped downstream industries. We don't have good downstream industries to make use of our raw materials, abundant raw materials in the country. Just to give you an example, I'm sorry, this is still in Bahasa Indonesia, but this just to give you some illustration. This is a palm oil downstream industries. It's almost about 30 kinds of downstream industry can be established from the palm oil. But in Indonesia, we only have crude palm oil, so it's the very first stage of processing industry from the palm kernel to crude palm oil, and we use some of them for cosmetic industries and for frying oil. This is all so far we used in Indonesia. So 75% of the crude palm oil is exported. It's only about 25% used domestically. This is just an example of how wasteful, or how the economy is not making use of the opportunity that it has. I always say that I still have, I believe that this country is a very rich country. what we need is a good policy to build its economy, and I would say that a sustainable economic growth in developing countries like Indonesia with economic potential can only be maintained and strengthened by, among others, we have to broadening and enhancing the economic base. This can be done easily by encouraging and developing industries producing agricultural and industrial input goods. So we have to slowly lessen the dependency on imports, empowering small economic players. We are not just giving the chance to all the bigger players, but millions of small and medium-scale economic players should be given opportunities to contribute to the economy. Farmers, fishermen, micro and small enterprises, and I believe that you can also build the economy by empowering or increasing the purchasing power of the people. And if you want to do that, fair trade, promoting fair trade, so small farmers, small fishermen, small plantation farmers can earn enough income. Fair wage, at least the same or a little bit above the basic minimum wage, and equal economic opportunities. I would say this is a pro-people economic growth strategy. Probably from economic development point of view, the rate of economic growth will be slightly lower, but the inequality will be less. I think that's all in a nutshell, and a macroeconomic development issues about Indonesia that I can share with you today. Thank you very much.